Howdy folks, Jake here with Banjo Ben, and what we're going to do today is put a spike in a banjo. What is a spike? Well, it's a capoing system, if you will, for the fifth string. Since the fifth string is offset, if you capo in any of these positions, you have to compensate the fifth string equally. And the most professional and efficient way to do that is through the spike system, which is what we're going to show you. So step one, let's go through all the little things you might need to gather to make this easier. The way I'm going to show you is kind of just an at-home approach. This is stuff that most of you will be able to do at your house, and you will have access to the stuff that I use. There are higher tech ways to do this with presses and jigs and stuff that looks like your banjo's getting an MRI. It's not necessary to do a good spike job, but so we're just doing kind of the everyman's approach, if you will. So first off, number 2 pencil comes in handy, or mechanical pencil, whatever, just something you can make a mark with. A couple of gap gauges, like spark plug gap gauges. You can buy these like on a key ring, a whole set for dirt cheap, like at Walmart or wherever, any hardware store. And for the purpose of this, I like to use anything from the 14 thousandths to the 16 thousandths range. It can kind of vary depending on the banjo, how tall your frets are, the thickness of string you like to use, etc., etc. But either one of these are generally a safe bet. For the way I install them, I tend to like the 14 thousandths. I think that's plenty sufficient, and it's very secure. Also some kind of little dead blow hammer, and a punch, small punch. I don't know what this is, about 1/8 of an inch or so. It can be a lot bigger than that even. It can be, you can use a punch as big as this one if you want to. It doesn't really matter. It's just for more accurately driving the spike in. Then, of course, you'll need some spikes, the star of the show today. We sell these on our website in packs of 12. They're very affordable. It's the same, they're just model railroad train spikes is what we use. Then from there, I think it's a 1/32 drill bit. And I get these, it comes in a little kit from Walmart, fairly affordable. We chuck them up in the Dremel here. You can use a hand drill. The Dremel's, it holds it a little more securely. On a hand drill, you might have to tape up that bit a little bit to get it to hold tight. But we're not going to like be doing a lot of drilling with a lot of resistance or anything, so you can get by with that. So I think that's pretty much everything. Let's just start with what we do. First, you determine where you want the spikes. I'm going to show you how to install one at the 7th fret. And I'm going to have the string tension up on it. And I'm going to just put me a line there using the string as a guide, as kind of a stopping point. Let's mark the line out to the edge of the fretboard. As far as that goes, there's, depending on which fret you put it on, there's 2 different methods. Some people like to just go like, I don't know, about a 1/4 inch back on each fret. I like to kind of use more of a compounded approach where I do about 30% roughly of the fret, if you want to think of it like that. So I'll go about 30% back from the fret. And then here, if I did one at 7, or I'm sorry, at the 9th fret, 30% would be not quite the distance because the frets shrink in. The same thing here and here, so I kind of use a 30% rule. It just looks cleaner to me that way, and it functions very well. But to each their own. If you wanted to just, some people cut like a little toothpick and lay on there and make a mark exactly the same on every one. That's generally fine too. I find the 30% rule is good for clearance because if you fret this fret, the higher up the neck you get, the less room you have for that string to climb over the fret. And so if you're still using a 1/4 inch, that brings it back further, and you don't have as much room for the string to climb, which usually isn't an issue but can sometimes be problematic depending on how close your action tolerance is. So once we've made our line here, we're going to take a little, that's one thing I didn't mention, to get you a little nail of some sort, just something, even like a thumb tack will work. But what I'll do, I'll set that right up against the string, like so, right on my line. I'll just give it a little taparoo, which creates a small little pilot hole there we can start with. And if you see what we're aiming for, at this point we can wipe away our pencil mark. But you see what we're aiming for. We want that hole to be right above the string. So the shaft of the spike itself will sit right above the string, if that makes sense. You can, you know, I've seen a lot of people on their first try doing this. They might accidentally set that hole in a little bit. Not a deal breaker, it's just whenever the string is set in the spike, it's going to be pushed over a little, which isn't going to minimize sharpness of the string as much as if the string can relax in its natural alignment, right? All right, so at this point, we got our little pilot hole. We're going to pop the string out and get it out of the way, like so. And we're going to fire our Dremel up. And I have my own approach. It looks very silly, but it's very consistent and repeatable, so don't make fun of me if I'm using a Dremel like this. I learned this at the last place that I worked for, and since we're showing you the everyman's approach, that's what we're going to do, because we didn't have a lot of resources at the last store. But so what I'll do, I'll just kind of set this under my chin, like so, and I can look right down this Dremel, and that gives me a pretty stable platform to go on. And then I'll turn the Dremel on, I'll just drop it in that hole, and I'll run it in until you can actually feel the resistance of the drill change when you get through the fingerboard and hit the neck wood below. It's a different wood, and a lot of times you'll see blonde wood start to spit out of the fingerboard too. Also, in doing this, what I'll do, I'll line up with the hole, get it pretty much straight on, and then I'll angle it back this way, just ever so slightly. What you want to avoid is going too much of an angle like this, because you run the risk of drilling out the side of your fingerboard on the side of the neck. You don't want that. You don't really want to go straight in exactly either, for the simple reason that with the resistance of the string, it's easier for it to pull a spike straight out. If we go in at a slight angle, if you've got a little bit of wood between, you know, basically acting, you have to pull it out at an angle, and the string itself is going to be kind of putting pressure straight up on the spike. So it just makes it not as easy for the string to pull the spike up over time. And usually have pretty good luck with this. So we're going to turn the Dremel on here. There we go. We got our pilot hole, and I don't know if you could hear or see the resistance when it went in, but I could definitely feel when I got through the fingerboard. And then from there, I just moved it up and down a little to clear the debris or the debris out. I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. I work on banjos for a living. So, all right, at this point, we're pretty much home free. That's the scary part, but there's nothing to be scared about. You know, as long as you're careful. The whole point of the pilot hole is your drill bit's going to drop right in there. If you don't put the little pilot hole in with a nail first, and you're just trying to drill to a mark with a high-speed drill, as soon as you hit the fingerboard, that thing's going to be doing this and scarring stuff up. If you've done that, still not the end of the world. You can get a little sandpaper and clean that up, and it'll be fine. All right, so at this point, I take a little bit of lemon oil. You don't have to do this part either. It just makes it handier. And I coat that area. That's going to help lubricate the spike as it goes in just a little bit. Then we're going to take the spike. Now, there are a couple theories on this, and in earlier videos, I used to follow the ideology of cutting the spike off, the little pointed end, cut it off flat, and that's an old framer's trick, carpenter's trick. If you don't want to split the board, you cut the nail off flat, and it won't split the wood. If you've drilled a sufficient pilot hole, it really doesn't matter if you do that or not. So you can do that if it makes you feel better, or if you're, you know, questioning your pilot hole. But if you feel like you got a pretty good pilot hole there, it'll just go right in, no problem. So what we do at that point, we're going to set it in the pilot hole, and then what I find is kind of the technique I've developed. I use my pinky as a rest, and then I'll put the punch against the middle of my index finger, and I can line it up with the spike really easily like that. And then I'll go ahead and get it started. Just a few gentle and solid raps. Now another thing, as you do this, it's natural that spike, because of the way the tip is cut on it, it's going to want to rotate on you. See how it's already starting to turn counterclockwise? So after a few whacks, get over here on the side of it and just gently tap it back straight. And you'll have to do that maybe a time or two until you get it seated. All right, now we're going to take our 14 thousandths or 16 thousandths gap gauge, and we're going to just push it right up against the shaft of that spike, right? Like so. And then I complete the process of seating it. There you go. And you can tell when you seat it, it meets a little resistance there. And then at that point, I'll still use the gap gauge in place, so because what can happen if I take it out and try to hammer against this, the metal can kind of scar up the fingerboard. Don't want that. Like I said, easy to fix with a little sandpaper and a little time. Not the end of the world if you do it, but in the name of efficiency, we like to not make any mistakes to begin with. All right, so you get it pretty much aligned. At that point, I will give it a more solid seat, just so there's a little resistance there. So you see if I push it all the way in, I pull that gap gauge out, there's just a little stick. That's exactly what I'm looking for. All right, at this point, just kind of, wipe away your oil, your pencil mark, whatever, use an eraser, whatever you want to do. And then we're gonna tighten the string back up here. Voila, one beautiful spike. And so to test it, what you do is you'll just pull the string down, push down on both sides of the string, and then proactively, while pushing down, pull it back in. It's not a hard procedure, but some people struggle with this because of poor technique. They just want to use one finger, and they're not being as deliberate about it. You just want to push it down with both fingers, slide it under. And if you've done a good job of it, you should see, the alignment of the string, real nice and pretty and straight. And you should have just about that amount of retention. You want enough retention that it's not going to come out while you're playing it, And as you can see there, I'm pushing the string all the way down to the 4th string, which is way more than you would ever do in any real application. And it's just as snug as a bug in a rug, or whatever the expression is, up in the spike. It's not going to pop out of there. So one other thing I didn't mention, on your neck support, you can use just your case if you don't have a neck support like this. You can also buy fairly affordable neck supports, for changing strings and working on instruments, but you can put it in your case if you don't have that. Just make sure to support it wherever you're hammering, you're going to get more resistance. It's going to make the spike drive easier too. If I had the block up here, I could still drive the spike. It wouldn't technically hurt anything per se. You're just getting more movement in the neck, so the spike's not going to feel like it's going in as easy. You're going to feel like you're fighting it a little more. So have the neck support centered under where you're working. And I think that's it. Let us know if that was helpful. And if you disagree, which I know I do. So anyway, thanks folks. We'll catch you next time.